Top of the morning to ya. We're the Whiskey Sippers, and today we're going to be talking about the Irish whiskey for St. Patrick's Day.
After this.
All right, thanks for joining us. This is our St. Patrick's Day video, as you can see by my
Cilantro.
Irish Sasquatch.
Yeah. I just got a shirt I got from waiting in front of a bar before they opened at like 5:30 in the morning a few St. Patty's ago. So super excited to be here for today. It's one of my favorite holidays. My family typically wears kilts, and we celebrate St. Patty's on St. Patty's. So
Patrick today has brought 4 different Irish whiskeys from Quiet Man.
Yep, the Quiet Man vertical. I have a 4, an 8, a 10, and a 12 and against Todd's single Jameson.
So this is my entire collection of Irish whiskey, the single bottle of Jameson's, $3.75. So I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about Irish whiskey. What I do know is traditionally, from what I understand, it is triple distilled in copper pot stilled coppers, right?
Yep.
And it is aged in not new oak barrels like you would have for bourbon,
reused,
but in used barrels.
Yeah.
Right. So it's triple distilled. They use a copper pot and used barrels.
Yep.
And that's about all that's my extent of Irish whiskey knowledge.
Yep. And my knowledge is really, do I like it or do I not? So I haven't gotten too deep into it. I probably should, considering I do like bourbon, I do like whiskey. I do celebrate the Irish heritage and culture. But to kind of give you a little bit of what we're going to get into, this one is going to be a 4-year product, a traditional, regular, I guess, your Irish whiskey. This one is a single malt, 8-year age statement. This one is a 10-year single malt, but is finished in a wine cask, Marsala wine barrels. So that one should be a little more unique and sweet. This one is a 12-year product, single malt as well. And that one is also going to be finished in the traditional setting of a single malt with the used barrels.
Yeah, I believe the 8-year and the 12-year are in used bourbon barrels.
Yes, used bourbon barrels. Yes. Sorry, yes.
And then finally, this is the standard Jameson, which I think is the Irish whiskey everyone knows, and the only Irish whiskey I have, just because I figured I should have something on my card.
You should. Yeah.
So we're going to give these a try and just let you know what we think.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Here we go. So Quiet Man.
Cilantro. Yeah, it's everyone's health. Very light.
Very light on the nose.
Very floral. If I'm not mistaken, I believe this one is only 80 proof. So I know these typically tend to be a little bit lower when it comes to the proof standpoint. I believe, let me look at the label. Yeah, 80, 80, 86, and the purple is always just hard to read. This is also 80. Actually, no, sorry, 92.
And I know these are, or at least these 3 are single malts.
Yep.
These 2 I don't necessarily think are single malts. From what I understand, Irish whiskey traditionally was a blend of malted and unmalted barley.
Yes.
But it's still all barley.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
I get a lot of floral. Very light.
It's actually, I get just a sweetness off the nose. All right. Ready?
Cheers.
Cilantro.
Oh, I get a little honey. Like a sweetness, a little honey on there.
That is just sweet and light.
Yeah.
You know what it reminds me of? So, and this is going to sound a little crazy.
I'm crazy, so it makes sense. Go ahead.
Growing up in the South, we used to go every summer around these bushes, what we called honeysuckle bushes.
Okay.
And they had a flower on them with a little stem. And you pull out that stem and there'd be a little drop. And you taste that drop. And it was kind of like a honey floral drop.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of honeysuckle.
It's a little nostalgia is what you're saying.
That's actually really nice. It's not complex.
Yeah.
It's not like when I drink a really like deep bourbon. It's not dark. It doesn't have those notes. It's like drinking a honeysuckle.
It's refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you liked the first one. So we're off to a good start. We might have peaked, but we're off to a good start.
But that's exactly what it reminds me of. It's like sipping on a honeysuckle. There's like no ethanol in there. It's very light and just kind of sweet, honey floral.
Yep.
All right.
All right. On to the 8-year.
And this is the 8-year, which this one is finished. This one is a single malt.
Yep.
Finished in a bourbon barrel.
Yep.
All right.
You can definitely
Okay,
smell
this one, absolutely a difference on the nose.
Oh, yeah.
This one, I think it's probably the bourbon coming through. It almost smells like a wood.
Yeah.
Like there's a little woodiness to it.
I get a little vanilla and oak, their typical characteristics. Also still very, very similar to this with that floral. Still get a sweetness to it. A little bit more complex.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like that maltiness brings it out.
Yeah, I think the maltiness in there, because I do get a little bit of earthy tones.
Also, it could be just from doubling the age. 4-year to 8-year.
That's true.
Not that it's a major jump, but from those years it is.
All right.
Cilantro.
Cilantro?
Definitely get more floral. Get a little less honey, more oak.
So a little less sweetness, you're right. I get a little bit of bitterness there.
I don't get too much
There's
bitter.
something on the end. A bitter, smoky. There's something on the end. Yeah, there's something on the end that
like a
the
peat?
finish.
Like a peat?
Not so much a peat, but I don't know if it's a mix of the char.
Could be the
maybe
char.
coming from a bourbon barrel.
Yeah.
But there's something on the end that kind of takes away the sweetness and leaves a little bit of bitterness for me.
I'm a fan.
I think I like the first one better.
So most people that I've shared these with typically tend to like the 4-year better than the 8. For whatever reason, I love the 8. As you can kind of tell, it's a little more sipped on because it's the one I prefer. But this one that we're about to try, the 10-year, it's finished in Marsala wine barrels. It's a fresh crack right now.
So we're going from a standard Irish whiskey,
Yep.
finished in bourbon casks, to an 8-year single malt Irish whiskey finished in bourbon casks, to a 10-year finished in
single malt finished in
wine
barrels. Yeah.
So that's going to be
they're all drastically different.
Bourbon and wine.
Yeah.
And a couple of years age. That's
Now, I've never
difference.
tried this one before. This is the first time for me, so I'm curious to see what it tastes like. And I know the colors, looking at like the palette, it is the darkest.
If you look at those, compared those to any bourbon, they all look like urine. Honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like urine colored.
Apple juice. They look like apple juice. But I'm saying like from the colors that are on the table,
Yeah.
this one is the darkest, which is a little surprising compared to the 12-year, which is right next to it.
So, I mean, it's got to be the barrel.
It's got to be the barrel.
It's got to be the barrel.
It's kind of.
I get the grapiness. I get like a grapiness on this. I definitely did not get on the first two.
Yeah. That's 100% from
Yeah,
what it's aged in.
That's absolutely the barrel.
So
I mean, there's really no comparison in any of these noses.
Cilantro. That's unique.
I don't like that finish.
I like the beginning part, and then about mid
nice
palate
and
it
sweet.
turns.
Yeah, and nice and sweet in the front.
Yeah.
But when it hits the end, there's
It's the wine.
it's a sour.
Yeah.
There's a sourness on the finish of that.
Almost a little tart as well. For me, I like wine, but not too thrilled on this one. I'm gonna try it again though, just to give it a second.
Yeah, it goes
sip.
sweet to sour, and I don't like that sour.
It's right at the mid palate.
You can really feel a shift when it gets to that finish.
Yep.
And I don't know. I'm sure it's the barrel.
Yeah.
But it just gets that sour, tart that I don't really like.
Yeah.
So that's just me.
Yep. And now the 12-year.
So this one is again a single malt Irish whiskey finished in bourbon barrels.
Similar to the 8-year, just an extra 4 years. So we're adding more age. So
And these Quiet Man, which I had never heard of till Patrick brought them,
yeah,
are all done in Derry, Ireland.
Derry, Ireland, northern, kind of northwestern Ireland. So
Okay.
they're definitely up there. I think from the website when I looked it up briefly, it's the first time that whiskey's been distilled in Derry in about 100 years.
So this 12-year.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into it.
This reminds me, I swear, some of the craft bourbons I've nosed. This has a
like not youthy, but
not
like,
youthy.
but
It's
grainy.
12 years.
Grainy.
Yes, a grainy.
That's what I meant to say.
Kind of almost like some of the grainy corn of a high proof bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me wonder when they say bourbon barrels, what bourbon was it they aged it in?
Yeah.
Right. And how much does that affect the whiskey?
Oh, absolutely.
Because there is a graininess in there that was not present in the 8-year.
Cilantro. Yeah. It's a very short finish, in my opinion.
That is a sweet corn.
Yeah.
That
Sweet corn.
that reminds me more of a 95.5 bourbon, or like a corn whiskey.
Yeah.
It's closer to me to a corn whiskey than
Not-
these others were.
Not quite like not mellow moments.
Mellow corn.
Mellow corn. Yeah. Mellow corn.
But it's got that sweet corn,
Yep.
kind of buttery,
A little buttery. Not as buttery
Yeah.
as like a mellow corn, but
but it's
But still
far
got a
more
little
than
butter.
any of these others that I would expect
yeah.
from something that was a single malt. Yeah, that's not bad. And it's funny that these are single malts because
you're not a fan of single
I
malts.
do not like single malts.
You also don't like Irish whiskey, so it's a double whammy.
Well, I've not had a lot of Irish whiskey. I've had more Scotch than Irish whiskey,
Yeah.
and I don't like Scotch. I'm not a fan of single malts because most of the single malts I have had are American single malts,
Yeah.
which to me are super, super earthy.
Yeah.
These aren't.
No.
Even though these are single malts, they're
They're
not
very-
an earthy malt.
They're very light, as you can just see in
Yeah.
color, despite being in the age statements what they're in. And like I said, we think this one just purely based off the barrel.
I think
because
that's
of the
affected
wine.
because it's finished in wine.
Yeah. But yeah, they're still very light in color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
They're-
I don't
they're good,
get,
though.
I don't get the earthiness I normally do in a single malt
Yeah.
at all. In fact, I haven't got that in like any of these really.
Yeah.
All right.
Glad you enjoyed those.
Yeah. So
They're unique and different.
the last one is a classic, just Jameson triple distilled.
Yeah.
Triple distilled barley-based whiskey in pot stilled copper pots or whatever. So
Yep, and this is the classic 80 proof.
yep, just the basic
proof.
Jameson.
One of my go-tos is a Jameson and ginger, also known as a shipmate. It's one of my go-tos for just St. Patty's Day.
Okay.
And also sneaking in a water. Maybe a Gatorade. Got a marathon out the day, but it's an absolute blast.
So less sweetness on the nose
Yeah.
than these others you brought.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
In fact, the nose is really muted.
I
this.
actually get some caramel on this one. It's faint.
I'm not
but
really
it's there.
getting much.
No, it's
Cilantro?
cilantro. Feels like I should have thrown it back a little quicker. Maybe add a little pickle juice, do a pickle back.
So
Usually I abuse Jameson, so I'll be the first one to admit that.
this is what I think of when I think of Irish whiskey, because when I think of Irish whiskey, I don't think of a lot of flavor.
Yeah.
I think it's something that's just a little bit of sweetness and just very tame
Yep.
all the way through. It's not going to burn your palate.
Nope.
It's not going to burn your throat. There's really no ethanol to it. It's just a sweet sip.
Yep.
And that's kind of what I get from this. It's
Yep.
just a little bit of sweetness from the barley. It goes down easy. It doesn't really have a finish. It doesn't have a lot of mouthfeel or anything like that. It's just a simple, sweet sip.
For me, Jameson is usually talked about in a form of a toast. then it's slinged back, and then it's usually followed up with a high five because that's how I chase.
There's nothing offensive about it,
No,
but there's also nothing that stands out about it.
exactly.
And that's how I have always pictured Irish whiskey, because this is about all I know.
Yep.
It's just kind of sweet in there and it's gone.
Yep.
And that's great for people who maybe don't drink whiskey all the time, and you want to introduce them, like, here's some whiskey, and you give that a try. But
It's a name brand. You're familiar with it.
it's-
People around the world are familiar with it and drink it too. Just like your standard Jack Daniels or number 7. It's just a classic branding name.
It doesn't have the standout. It doesn't have the complexity and punch of like a bourbon
Yeah.
or a rye.
Yep. Oh, definitely not a rye.
Yeah, just very there.
Yeah.
Sweet and smooth and easy to drink, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Jameson.
Yeah.
Now, out of these that we did, if I go back through here,
Yeah, please. I'm really curious to see your thoughts and opinions.
and you know what?
As someone who's been brand new to the product.
Right. So we'll come back. I'll give you my thoughts. I'm going to retry all of these and give you my Irish whiskey thoughts.
Looking forward to that in a second.
All right, we're back. I went back through these and kind of made my notes and my mental notes on what I think of them. And just to revisit, to me, I really like this first one. It reminds me, like I said earlier, of when I was a kid and we would test the honeysuckles.
Yeah,
It's
that
like
nostalgia.
Yeah, it's like a honey with a little bit of flour to it.
Mhm.
Very light. There's no burn. Now, if I'm looking for something where I'm really looking for complexity, I'm always going to go to bourbon or a rye.
Mm-hmm.
But from just drinking this, it's nice. It's
Yeah.
a nice thing to just sit and sip. So I kind of like it.
Yeah.
I also kind of like the 12-year. Right, so it reminded me, it had a lot of the same characteristics.
Yep.
But it was a little bit darker with, I think the age gave it a better mouthfeel.
Yep.
And I think the bourbon barrel that it was finished in,
It gets absorbed a little bit more.
yeah,
of
it
the juice.
brought some of the bourbon notes of the char
Mhm.
and a little bit of the like sugary aspect
Yeah.
that comes from bourbon. So along with the kind of like bourbon, the brown sugars and stuff you get from the bourbon, to go along with that kind of honey finish that came from the initial
Yep, the first one.
whiskey. So I definitely liked the first and which was what, 4-year?
4-year. Yep.
4-year and the 12-year were my two favorites.
Mhm.
The Jameson, very simple,
Kind of bland.
bland.
You know what you're getting.
Yeah,
Nothing
didn't
too
really
crazy.
didn't stand out, but wasn't offensive.
Yeah.
The 8-year, I don't know. There was a little bit of bitterness in there. I'm guessing from the bourbon barrel. The way
Probably.
it picked up the char,
Mhm.
and it didn't have the age to it. It was a little bitter, and the finish on the wine cask Irish
Yeah.
whiskey, I didn't like.
Yeah. For
But
me,
I also don't like most wine finished bourbons,
Yeah.
honestly. So
yeah, I would probably say my top ones would be the 8-year, followed by the 12-year, then the 4, probably Jameson, just because it just is what it is, and then lastly being the 10-year. That's where my rankings would be. But I'm just glad you enjoyed these. I know these are a newer variety to you.
Yeah.
So awesome to see an openness and receptiveness to single malts that aren't a traditional single malt. So they are unique and different. They can be, at least.
They are definitely different from the single malt scotches or the single American single malts I've had, in that none of these had kind of the earthy tones that I dislike.
Yeah.
So it was nice to try some of these Irish whiskeys,
Yeah.
something new to me.
Yeah.
Opened up my
light
palate a
floral,
little bit.
very
Yeah.
different to what you're normally used to. So glad you gave them a try.
All right.
Yeah.
So there you go. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great St. Patrick's Day.
Be safe. Make sure you drink some water, chug a Gatorade.
Have a designated driver.
Have some food.
Yeah.
And make sure if you don't have a designated driver, utilize your Lyfts, your Ubers,
Yeah.
call a friend, call your parents, call somebody, a neighbor. Make sure you get home safely.
Or be like me and just drink in your basement at home, and you don't got to worry about it.
Yeah, when you have a collection like this, it's not that hard.
So until next time, remember, the best bourbon or whiskey
is the one you like the most.
Cilantro.